Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining me here this morning for our 11 a.m. Workshop. So as Julia mentioned, I'm Cole Iverson. I work here at our wonderful university, USC here. I work in talent acquisition, which is essentially recruitment, right? A fancier word for recruitment here essentially within human resources. So I'll be presenting today for you all. Hope everyone is enjoying the virtual summer career professional development bootcamp so far. And hope you're getting some great tips in the early sessions to help advance your career and just overall some general tips to go forward with. So before we get started here, I just wanted to thank Julia, MJ, Lori, and the USC Career Center for inviting me back again to come speak and this morning and just providing the opportunity for you all to get more tips and advice as you're either, just starting your professional career or you've been in the workforce maybe for some time. Either way, just want to help you all sharpen your skills and the next steps in your professional journey career. So, in today's workshop session, I'll be combining two important topics that often are connected together, right? One is negotiating a salary, right, to essentially help you get paid fairly. And the second part is really just some good basic skills to help manage the money once you start earning it, right? Which is important as well. So it's common for people to get kind of good at their craft, right? And they have professional expertise in certain areas, but sometimes it may lack the confidence and knowledge to understand how compensation, negotiation, and just overall personal finances, right, all tie together when the time comes during the recruitment process when you're about to receive an offer and have to make a critical decision, right? On a couple things to consider. So hopefully this workshop can tie it all together for you, and you can take away, some of these key points here. Ultimately, my goal for this workshop is to again provide you with information on these topics, help you get prepared for the next time you're expecting to negotiate a salary for a job offer. So kind of what we'll cover here today, I broke it down into a little bit of about four main parts, right? So essentially, one, how to confidently negotiate salary and benefits. Two, understanding your market value, quote unquote, right? And advocating for fair compensation. The third one I broke it down to is kind of building practical budgeting and money management strategies. And then number four, really developing habits for long-term financial wellness. Most importantly, though, for this workshop, and again, I think Julia mentioned it earlier before we got started, is this is your workshop, right? I'm just here to present and help kind of facilitate the information. I really want you all to kind of take away obviously what you need to from here. So I'm going to be speaking, but I do appreciate engagement and any questions you may have. Along the way here, I do also have two slides that are kind of like some just kind of quick interactive activities where you can kind of practice some of the skills that I'm going to be covering today here for you. So before I jump in, I'll just quickly share a little bit about who I am and my background briefly here. So as I mentioned, I'm a manager of talent acquisition here at USC internally within Central Human Resources. My team and I are focused on essentially interviewing and hiring the best talent, right, to come work here for USC. One of our clients that we do support, right, is the USC Career Center with that. But really, I manage a team of recruiters, and everyone that we hire in some capacity comes here to support you all, right? So the students, whether that's on the academic side, on the research side, or simply just making sure this university kind of operations keeps functioning, right? To help kind of support the achievements that we have here. So I spent the last about 12 years in recruitment and talent acquisition. So it's safe to, I'm confident to say that I've probably conducted thousands of interviews over the years, in person, over the phone, via Zoom, all across the board and all types of skill levels and experiences. Prior to USC, I worked at another university and spent some time in government aerospace as well as some agencies. Lastly, I did graduate from the university. I did my HR degree during the pandemic, and I'm currently enrolled at USC Gold in the law program there. And you'll see at the bottom here, I've included some of my contact information via LinkedIn and email, and all the workshops that I do here at USC I always like to extend kind of further beyond to connect with you all via LinkedIn or via email. It's just kind of an additional resource to help assistance or questions kind of going forward. So, without further ado, we'll jump into the workshop and get started. So negotiating salary and benefits confidentially. This may be stating the obvious here, but many people do find negotiating these two things very uncomfortable, right? And it's natural to kind of feel that when you get to this point in the recruitment process to negotiate your salary or your benefits. You want to be confident in your negotiations, right? But you also want to be respectful, right? Because who you're negotiating with at that moment or in the process is likely going to be your colleague or possibly your manager if you do decide to accept the offer. So it's important when you get to this stage, it starts off on the right foot, but you also want to be successful on your side as the candidate. So it's natural again, it's natural to feel kind of nervous, but also to have the thought that sometimes negotiation can be rude in a sense, right? Or it can be a touchy subject. You're essentially countering, right, their initial job offer for something different. So whether that's a higher number on the salary or increased benefits, either way, it could be kind of one of those two. But ultimately, I want you to make sure you shift your mindset, your mindset when it comes to negotiating, right? Negotiation is expected, right? It's part of the process. It's going to be expected as you get to this point in the recruitment process. When you shift your mindset to accept that you're not just asking for more, you're negotiating with the recruiter or the HR person to really align your value with the compensation, right, for that role. So every single one of you have value, and you're negotiating your value at this stage to hopefully align with a desired compensation number or an overall strong benefits package. When you're negotiating, of course, and it's maybe obvious as well, but timing is extremely important when it comes to the negotiation stage. You negotiate after receiving a formal offer, likely most of the time. With the timing, it is important to use phrases that show your excitement, but also maintain your leverage since you're receiving the offer, right, as the final candidate kind of in the process usually. So using a phrase like, thanks so much, thank you so much for the job offer. I'm really excited about this opportunity in the organization. Can we discuss the overall compensation package, right? Something of that, in that general sense, but it's professional, and it's keeping it kind of in your ask, right? As you do go forward with the salary negotiation. So, in some scenarios, depending on the organization's budget or the level of the role, the salary may not be able to budge beyond what the initial offer is, and that's okay. In those cases, it's also completely okay to ask about negotiating other aspects of the entire package beyond the salary. So just remember that value in some sense doesn't always refer to only a salary number. There's also value in a remote kind of hybrid schedule. There's definitely value in the pay time off, vacation accruals, or there's even professional development opportunities that having an employer paid for your certification or your tuition reimbursement to further your education with their help is also extremely valuable as well, outside again of just the kind of money or salary sense. So structuring a negotiation response, once you decide to negotiate, how do you actually structure the conversation, right? I kind of look at this part as a simple formula. So one, as I mentioned in the previous slide, you express your enthusiasm, right? Thank you so much for this job offer. I'm really excited to get to this point and be selected. You're going to want to anchor your negotiation with data. And ultimately, you want to make a clear ask, right? A clear ask of what you're negotiating, whether that's the salary or that's the benefits, or sometimes could be both, depending on the scenario. But sometimes I feel the biggest mistake that candidates make is skipping the first step, which is expressing enthusiasm, right? Especially if it's going through a long process of an interviews, it's been stressful, but you do make it to the end and get an offer. You want to again express your enthusiasm to be there and be selected for receiving the offer. You want to express your enthusiasm because ultimately employers want to know and feel off the bat negotiations like, do you actually want this job before discussing money? Like, are you excited to get to the stage of the process before we start discussing money? So I always think a good negotiation feels collaborative, right? A bad negotiation feels confrontational. So here's some examples to help give you some context, which I noted here on the slide. Um, Compensation, right, related. Thank you so much again for the offer. I'm really excited about the opportunity. Based on my research and the scope of the role, I was expecting something in the range of X, Y, and Z. Is there flexibility to move closer to that number? Or if you're negotiating benefits, you want to maybe tweak your response or your response to the recruiter or the HR person. I understand there may be limitations on base salary. Are there other areas of the package that may have flexibility, such as a signing bonus, professional development, or additional pay time off, right? Um, I think it's also important to note here that you may notice that some job postings now do include salary ranges, right, on their job postings, and that's essentially due to pay transparency laws that in certain states, like here in California, they have to post the salary range, right? So when you're negotiating and you do see a salary range on the job posting, I always feel it's important that to stay realistic by using that posted range as your guide if you're going to negotiate on the salary. So what you say matters, but how you say it matters even more, right? So your tone, your confidence, your professionalism will help you be successful in your negotiations. You're going to want to avoid emotional arguments, right? And again, focus on the evidence or the data. And remember, silence is a tool as well, a tool that you can utilize in the negotiation process. What does silence kind of mean in this sense? Well, really, after making your ask, sometimes you want to pause for some silence, right? And the reason that I mention this is because it's natural as a candidate for you to feel at the end of the process to get nervous when negotiating, right? It's kind of a tense moment. Maybe it's not comfortable to you, or maybe you're not as confident in it. So sometimes I do see a lot of candidates get nervous at the end when they're negotiating, and when you get nervous, you tend to bypass silence and continue talking or rambling on, right? It's just kind of a natural human characteristic that happens. So a pause of silence really helps to hopefully avoid rambling when you get nervous after your negotiation or salary ask. It's also important to note that in negotiations, it's really about finding alignment, not just you winning per se, right? It's really just to hopefully find that middle ground alignment, and not about like winning the contest by any means. And sometimes really the answer is like this is our best offer or we cannot kind of budge beyond this number, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that they don't value you at all as a candidate or the final person selected. It just truly means that they cannot increase their budget because it's just a hard stop on the financial area, and those benefits are set across the organization for all employees. So that's okay. But I think the most important thing, if you do come across that, is that you asked, right? And you advocated for yourself to potentially initiate. So in the previous slide, when I mentioned come with data, it's connected to understanding your market value, right? Your market value isn't your personal worth. Market value is simply what employers are willing to pay for a specific skill set based on a certain kind of set number of factors that I've listed here. So that could be the position, that you're in, or the industry that you're in. So tech, finance, construction, manufacturing, experience level, right? If you're an entry or new graduate, or you're a 20-year experienced individual, right? Experience level obviously matters. Geographical location is also important too. In high market areas, right? Los Angeles, New York, and also skill demand, right? How in demand is it for your skills, maybe in that market or in that industry? So market value is really the intersection, in my opinion, of all of these. Market value can change over time, of course, especially, as we move forward with advancements in areas like technology or AI, that kind of will intersect in all these industries in some way, right? The market value will change because of these. So you might ask, Cole, how do I find my market value, or how do I know my market value? So there's a couple different ways that I recommend. And there's many different tools, but just a couple here that I laid out. There's, LinkedIn Salary Insights. If you go to Indeed, there's a salary tool that you can punch in some numbers, experience, and industries and whatnot. There's a couple sites, PayScale or Glassdoor, that also have the option to kind of see what kind of your market value may be in your location or your industry or your skill set. And you can also search similar job postings as well with salary ranges that may help you kind of get an idea of what a certain role at a certain level is paying kind of across the board, maybe in the area or the industry. Most importantly, though, also you can reach out to your Trojan network, right? It's strong and extremely valuable in many ways, and a lot of alumni, including myself and everyone here, kind of in this room, I'm sure is helpful to help you navigate this area if you need some assistance. So employers don't only evaluate just years of experience, right? There's other value drivers that can be found and can be beneficial to you. There could be some examples of some value drivers that I have here. Internships or volunteer work, right? Especially if you're a new grad or a recent graduate. Could be technical or specialized skills. How effective and clear your communication skills are, maybe what certifications and continued learning you have, whether that's again taking more courses, getting furthering your education beyond a bachelor's degree or for graduate work. It could be the demand in the industry for your skill set, or just your overall professionalism and reputation, right? And kind of this ties back to when you're negotiating, just being professional and having a clear ask, right? Of that. So if you're a new or recent graduate, even with minimal work experience, you still have lots of value to share and explain. It just takes a little bit more time and effort to convey it, but new or recent grads, I want you all to know you still have a lot of value, right, to share and explain. Um, I talked about mindset earlier on a previous slide, and it's kind of the same here for new or recent graduates. If you're It's going to go a long way if you shift your mindset from I'm inexperienced or I don't have too much work experience to I have value that I can articulate, and I can share this with you all, right? And again, that comes from some of the examples of value drivers that I listed here. So when you're advocating for yourself, I want everyone to understand it's not arrogance, right? You're advocating for your value and your worth. It's just confidently believing in your value, right? And using the data and the evidence to support it. Again, you want to be clear and confident and specific in your ask as you're negotiating and advocating for yourself. It's also important to think about your long-term mindset as well. So building your skills, building your professional brand, and just building your professional network, right? Your compensation growth will follow your value growth. I feel it's important to note as well at the bottom here that even if you're unsuccessful in your negotiation, just in my opinion, learning to advocate for yourself and your career is still extremely valuable going forward, right? Whether it's the first time or the 20th time you've done this, each time that you do it, whether you feel you're successful or not, it's more practice and experience that you're gaining, right? Whether you're again successful or unsuccessful in your negotiation. So here we have kind of our first little bit quick interactive activity here that I wanted to post to you all. So as I mentioned, again, this is your workshop, and hopefully some of these activities like this one can help you kind of practice a little bit with that. So I kind of provided a sentence here and open to suggestions, or if you want to type in your response of how you can kind of fix it to be maybe more confident or better. So here's the examples. Like, I guess essentially someone is at the end of the recruitment process, right? They receive an offer and they tell the recruiter this sentence right here. I was wondering if maybe there's any chance the salary could be higher. So I'm asking kind of you all, like, what do you feel is could be fixed about this sentence, or what is wrong with this sentence? If you have any answers kind of here in the chat of how to improve it or what can be improved, feel free to drop it in. I'll leave it here for a minute or two of any suggestions or thoughts of what can be improved based on just kind of this sentence here. So that's great. As kind of Sophie mentioned, I would like to discuss if there's room to have the salary base closer to X, Y, and Z, which is great. It's a kind of a straightforward, clear, confident ask. Um, as Bella mentioned, thank you for this information. Based on the experience, I'm asking, and salary outline, I'm asking for X, Y, and Z. Was wondering maybe if um, definitely can be improved, right? To show more confidence in the tone, as I mentioned kind of earlier, instead of maybe removing the wondering and just kind of, again, cutting straight to the point, professionally, right? Of course, and confidently. Um, it's a great one, Angela. I'm excited about this opportunity based on the market data. I was expecting to align more with the X, Y, and Z range, right? Those are all great, and definitely something to that. Yeah, Rosario, based on the projects I've worked on and certifications I've obtained, I've also seen the market value for this position based at X, Y, and Z. Is this something similar you can match to? That's a great example as well. And kind of what I would say to that is basically what you all mentioned, right? Or what you all are thinking in the same sentence. Is essentially, yeah, just expressing enthusiasm about the opportunity, anchor it with data, right? So based on my research or experience, explore discussing compensation closer to X, Y, and Z amount, which you've been targeting. So thank you for that. Let's jump in here to the next one. So earning your salary and managing it. So now let's shift gears a little bit and kind of into the second portion, right, of being able to being financially well and kind of the budgeting habit. So you received a job offer, right? So let's look at it that way. You received the offer, um, and you landed on the terms of the salary and the benefits that you were seeking. Now let's talk about kind of what happens next after you get the paycheck, because that's extremely important as well. So, early financial wellness is extremely critical and important. Your early habits with a new paycheck are critical. So, look, you get a new salary, and naturally, like your lifestyle wants to increase too with a new salary. You wanna upgrade on things, right? And with the new compensation. So, this is why it's important to understand early on, before you get your kind of new paycheck or you get your new increase, what your needs or your wants are, and your paychecks that start coming in, right? So budgeting for your basic needs, this may be obvious, and I hope everyone is doing it already thus far or has been doing it, but budgeting for your basic needs like rent, groceries, minimum debt payments, either for school loans or credit cards potentially. Your basic needs are going to take the priority, right, over your wants. With your wants, maybe you'll want to travel more with your new salary. You're very tempted to. You want to do some online shopping now with your new money. You'll be tempted to potentially add on some more monthly subscriptions or something, right? So just paying more for certain things that are wants versus your actual needs to help kind of build the early financial wellness. Um, a budget is really about creating a plan for your money. Budgeting helps kind of reduce the stress, prepare for emergencies, and build for a savings. And you always want to budget off your net pay. So net pay is essentially the amount of money you take home after all mandatory taxes and voluntary deductions. So your benefits or retirement are subtracted from your gross pay. And it's important to initially, as you're budgeting, start building an emergency fund. So many people think, and this was kind of including myself initially, right? Many people think that emergency funds require thousands of dollars to start off with, right? And which, of course, that's the initial goal, right? Is to get there with an emergency fund or a savings fund. But to get there, I recommend kind of starting with some small contributions, right? I kind of broke it down into a little bit of some goals. Maybe your first goal could, save $500. The second goal is save $1,000. Then gradually build towards 3 to 6 months of expenses, right? So I always believe in the concept. I personally do kind of pay yourself first concept, right? Which is essentially setting aside your savings before you spend on the wants, right? Like entertainment, shopping, or upgrades. You can to help you kind of set up an emergency fund initially or avoid kind of the overspending for wants. You can set up options like auto transfer with your bank through an app to transfer a certain amount right to your savings every paycheck. right? So you're not tempted to potentially spend that. It can auto transfer initially once your paycheck comes through. So here's just kind of a quick, realistic, achievable example. Let's just say like you're an hourly employee, right? And you get paid on a biweekly basis, so twice a month. If you saved $75 per paycheck, twice a month, it becomes 150 per month in your savings. And over a year period, if you add all that up and don't touch it and are committed to saving that, you've saved $1,800 in 1 year in savings, just by kind of starting off with $75 per paycheck, which is about one dinner these days, right? Essentially. So just a quick little bit of example there. Um, some of you may be thinking, Cole, this is good and something I'm working on to build an emergency or savings fund. But how does this tie into salary negotiation? Well, negotiating your salary effectively upfront, right, can increase your savings potential and help emergency funds build faster and improve your financial stability early, right? So if you're able to successfully be successful in your salary negotiation and get an increase to a number that ties into your value, that extra amount that you potentially negotiated up can go towards your savings, right? If you want to look at it that way, or it can go towards building an emergency fund with the amount that you've negotiated up from the initial offer. So good money habits, they can involve automation or automatic transfer, which is always a good option, right? To help kind of build that savings. Essentially, right, the automation or the automatic transfer through the app is doing the work for you, right? So you don't have to physically be tempted to bypass 1 month or bypass one paycheck to save. Being consistent, right, in your tracking of weekly and monthly spendings is important, and working towards your financial goals in the both short term and long term as well. And there's many tools out there that you can use to help track that can be very beneficial to you. Tools can be just really as simple as an Excel sheet, right, with a couple of formulas, or using an app maybe potentially. Hopefully, you don't have to pay for the app to save for that money, but sometimes the apps are worth it, right, if it's going to help you save. But ultimately, like when it comes to tools, there is no best tool per se to help you track. It really comes down to what tool you're going to use consistently, right, to help achieve your financial goals. And again, that could be a simple Excel sheet or an app that you dedicate to kind of on a monthly basis or a biweekly basis. So starting early and investing well is important as well. As you went through the recruitment process for your job and you received the offer, hopefully you looked and studied the company's benefit package as well, to see what options your new employer has that can help you invest. And that could be in the form of a retirement plan or a 401k or 403b. And those options do have match contributions that are available to you to help build your growth. Again, you don't have to start with a lot. You just have to start at some point, right? And hopefully sooner rather than later, when it comes to saving. So let's connect everything we've discussed today and essentially connect this back to the salary negotiation as I did a little bit prior here. So negotiation, it increases your earning potential, right? And that earning potential again can go a lot towards your savings or building better financial habits. If you're able to be successful, your market awareness or market value, again, helps you negotiate competitively. And again, you can find that through those sites or those options that I provided earlier in the slides here. Um, your budgeting is extremely critical, helps you control your spending, as well as helping create a savings or emergency fund. And just investing overall, right? Whether that's again in a 401k or a 403b or stocks. I know some people are into stocks. Just in general, smart investing, helps build kind of long-term financial stability. Um, and as I mentioned before, negotiating your salary can increase your income and savings, but it really comes down to budgeting, like which determines how effectively you keep and you grow the money that you're receiving. So the second and last activity that I have here, we'll do one before we wrap up here. This is probably the easiest multiple choice question you've had here at USC through your entire educational career. Um, So here's kind of the setting. You get a raise, right? From 60,000 to 75,000, a 15K increase, which is great, right? You were successful in your negotiations. What changes are you going to make in your lifestyle, right? Are you going to upgrade your apartment for, more square footage? Uh, B, you're going to travel more. You've been thinking about some big international trips, or trips across the US for some time now that you have some more money. Maybe you'll do that. C, sign up for more subscriptions. Do you want to upgrade maybe all of your streaming apps to the ad-free versions now, right? Since you're balling on the new budget. Or D, is there a better answer, right? And there's no wrong answer here per se, but of course I think we all, based on the topic, right, and kind of what's been covered, essentially may feel which one of these options are available. But I'll give it a minute here. So I see it could be a good point. D, right, increasing savings, money, investments, budget and save. D, yeah, enough to live by yourself and accommodate disabilities is important as well. Yeah, save increase savings and investments. Purchase land, right? Buy gold, are important too. Online shopping is okay too as well if that helps mentally as well, but it's an option. Yeah, and personally increasing D for sure to save a fund. So all great answers. Again, there's no wrong answer, but again, I think the more focused one, right, is going to be you're going to be D and increasing your savings. So here's kind of the key takeaways, right? If going through kind of through the workshop here and going through all the slides, like I wanted to provide some key takeaways here at the end. And what I hope are with some of you will leave the session kind of with, right? So knowing your value, right? And again that comes from doing your research, being anchored with data, right? Or just knowing your overall value, advocating for yourself professionally, right? Especially when it comes time to salary negotiation or potentially increasing the benefits package of any sort. Just being able to advocate for yourself professionally and being confident with that. Um, yeah, negotiate with confidence and preparation. Again, doing the prep work, right, and feeling comfortable with that. Some may ask, like, how do you get better at negotiating with confidence preparation? It takes time, right? You could do a lot of practice. You can do some mock negotiation interviews through the Career Center here or with alumni. Those are options as well. You can definitely build those strong financial habits early, as I mentioned, which are extremely important. And ultimately, right, you want to focus on short term, but also long term as well, growth when it comes to, again, your career, your professional advances, or even just your savings habits, right? Just focus on the long term sustainable growth in all those areas. As I mentioned kind of earlier on in my first slide, I always invite everyone to connect with me on LinkedIn. Um, I'll drop my link here in the chat here shortly, but connect with me on LinkedIn, stay connected together as fellow Trojans. My email is available here as well. If I can answer any questions that I couldn't get to today or expand upon here in this session. But ultimately, I appreciate everyone being here today, just listening and participating and just kind of taking in some of the topics that I've been covering here. I hope you'll leave with at least one negotiation strategy, and one financial habit that you can start using immediately or in the next couple times. Um, I'll move here to a slide question if there's any questions or answers that anyone has based on kind of what I've covered today or wasn't able to expand on further. If you rather ask a question outside of the room here with everyone, feel free to message me on the side or send me an email or a message, and happy to kind of connect that way here as well. But I'll open the floor up. I see a couple of hands here for some questions and all of that. Uh, Paula, I think you have a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question about just taking taking part of the investment retirement plans. So if I'm transitioning between jobs, like having seasonal or part-time jobs, is this still like the best environment to invest in the retirement plans, or do you recommend doing the retirement plan once I'm like solid in my position?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, and sometimes I do get that often, kind of towards the end of the process when there's negotiations, right, about an offer and the benefits package, and my recommendation would be to start early on or start now, even with the part time or the seasonal work, if there's an option, right, to contribute even in a part time or a seasonal fashion to some sort of retirement plan or savings account per se, right? That can receive some kind of matching or something of that nature. My recommendation is always to start sooner rather than later. You can also ask about the option, in those scenarios of like the short term or part time work to the employer, if they know or if the company knows that they use, can those retirement plans that you're contributing to be rolled over, right? Or does it have the ability to be rolled over maybe to your next employer, right? Or to the next full-time job that offers kind of a same type of retirement plan. So just as an example, before I came to USC, at my other university, I was contributing to a different kind of retirement plan initially. When I joined here at the university, there was the option to roll over what I had contributed to in a previous prior company, in previous university, over to here at USC now, right, and combine those. And again, it's going to vary situation by situation or basis by basis, Paula, in terms of what's available. But there is always that option to hopefully potentially transfer over what you've started contributing in a part-time or a seasonal basis to the next one, or maybe your full-time position going forward. So all in all, the earlier the better if it's an option is my recommendation.
Awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely. Ladoris, you has a hand up.
Hi, yes. So a lot of times, I think all times, when you with the 401k, they always do a match.
Hmm.
And I was wondering, would that be a good, let's say it's 4%, 4%. Would it be a
Sure.
good idea to do 6 and 4 so you have 10,
Yeah,
even
that's
though
a
they're not matching the six?
sure. No, that's a good great question. And what I usually recommend is if you're financially able and can budget to contribute more beyond the 4%, the more the better. Initially, like, and again, it's going to come down to again your budgeting, Ladoris, right? If you're able to, break everything down and you can afford to contribute more beyond the 4%, you're gonna get them matched. But anything beyond that you're able to contribute is going to be great. It's going to be beneficial to you in the long term. So if you're financially available, able to, I always again recommend, yeah, contributing more beyond what the matching percentage is. I do that here at the university, beyond a little bit what the matching percentage is here, because again, the more you can contribute, if you're able to, the better will be in the long run. And I think some companies, again, going to vary, but some companies do give you the option to, if you're, let's just say, Ladoris, you're contributing more beyond this, beyond 4%, you're doing 6%, and then 6 months later, maybe you need to scale back to 4%, right? Or you have the option sometimes to do that. So again, if you can contribute more for 6 months and then have to scale back a little bit to save more back to 4%, usually that's an option as well. But again, it's going to vary situation by situation. So hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Sophie has a question here. So Sophie asks, um, what to pay attention to when negotiating salary with HR, or mentioning they will have to bring it back to the team to align. So yeah, another great question as well. I think typically, there's gonna be, you're gonna want to pay attention to a lot of things, but essentially I think the time frame, right, that happens between when you counter, right, the initial offer, and the team has to go back to talk to finance or talk to a business officer or the manager, right, about their budget to see if they realistically can meet that or not. There's going to be some time frame in between that, which you'll want to pay attention to. And obviously, that may be a day. It could be a couple days. Hopefully, not longer than that to get back to you. But there's going to be some kind of time frame that you're going to want to pay attention to. But usually what I recommend before going to the negotiation phase and you extend your counter offer, right? You can always ask at the end of the conversation, like, when can I expect to hear back, right? Like what's an acceptable time frame that I can expect to hear back from you or the team regarding kind of my regarding the counter offer, right? So to help kind of pay attention to that time frame, you can always just kind of be direct, right, and ask like on a time frame of when you're going to hear back, so you can kind of gauge, right, how long this the negotiation um, to come back to you, right, is going to take. So hopefully that helps as well with that question.
Yes, but I would like to follow up. So time frame
Sure.
wise, is there anything like I should be concerned about or because you've been emphasizing on time frame?
Yeah, I mean, I would be concerned. I would be concerned if an employer like promises you, "Hi, Sophie, we'll get back. I'll have a response to you in 28 to 48 hours," and that response then unknowingly extends to longer than that or a week maybe, right? I mean, may not be a concern. It may be a concern, may not be a concern. But if a company or a recruiter can't be honest with you up front and say, "Hey, Sophie, I need a little bit more time to talk to finance beyond the 28, 48 hours." If they can't communicate with you or a company like is going beyond what they're promising to get back to you with, or just not being open about their communication, they need a little bit more time. I'd say it's probably a little concerning, right? A little bit just kind of not being able to hold to their promise or to their time frame. But again, it's gonna vary situation by situation, but that would be kind of a little bit of concern that I would have.
I see, that makes sense. Then if that actually happens, is there any suggestions on how to follow up?
Yeah, I usually recommend I always appreciate as a recruiter, right? That I talk to candidates on the phone or people call me on the phone, right? I think having a conversation over the phone is always going to be supreme, right? To having a conversation over email or questions over email. Again, given the situation, of course. But definitely try to follow up with a phone call if you're able to, or just really check in kind of politely and ask. Just wanted to check. Hey, Cole, just wanted to check in and see what the status is of the counter offer, right? If you were able to get a response back from the finance team or the manager based on the offer. I still remain completely excited and interested in the opportunity, but just wanted to follow up on a response to the counter offer that we discussed. Something of that nature is kind of what I would recommend.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And then there's another question from Angelo. What if they say the offer is already aligned with the market and can't offer anything else? Is it worth pushing or stopping there? Yeah, great question as well. Um, I always caveat if you can tell situation by situation, right? But generally speaking, at that point, like really, if they say, the offer we can't go any farther, we can't kind of increase beyond that. Um, I would recommend probably at that point, like not pushing any farther. To be that it can't always hurt to ask in a polite manner, any farther. But typically, like in my situations here and my team situations here at USC, like we do go back with a counter offer to present to the client or to the manager, and they say, hey, we really can't just increase further. That's generally the answer, right? And there's not going to be really any budging beyond that. And again, to that point, Angela, I also kind of go back to like, potentially just kind of holding there, right, and not pushing further, if you feel so. Just because, again, like you're going to potentially work with this person, you're going to negotiate with, and if they're really honest with you and just saying we can't go any further than that, like I generally take that as like, yeah, they gave their best effort, their good faith effort, right, to consider it, but just can't go any farther, and that's okay. If you feel that's of value to you at that point, what the final offer is. So hopefully that helps as well. And then yeah, Julia, that's a great question here. So if a student wants to negotiate for a higher salary and they have another competing offer, can they use it to leverage the negotiation? Absolutely. I definitely feel that's a piece of leverage that everyone should be using. Again, I see here all the time, right, with kind of roles and especially for certain industries, right, and certain skill sets that are always in demand, right, and are in high need. They're a USC graduate, right? It's on the resume. They have great experience. They're receiving multiple offers, which is always great, right? It's always good to get multiple offers, even one offer, but multiple offers. And I always think it's a good idea to just be honest with the recruiter or the manager that you're working with during negotiations. Hey, I have an XYZ offer. Or I have an offer from a competitor or another company in this area at this number, and I'd like to discuss potentially matching this or going a little bit beyond this as I remain interested to join USC or join the organization. So definitely, I always advocate for the candidates to use your leverage if you have it, right? Be truthful and honest, of course, right, and in good faith, but if you have leverage, you definitely want to use that in negotiations, not just in job offers, but just always in life too as well going forward. If you have the leverage, you always want to utilize it. Another question here. What's the best way to respond to the question? Do you have other competing offers or any other positions lined up? What are recruiters really trying to get at? Yeah, that's something that I teach myself, or I kind of use in the process, Rosario, and I kind of guide my recruiters to ask that question, like, do you have any other competing offers, or what are we competing against, right? And that's really from my point of view, just to really be honest and upfront and ask, kind of what the competition is for this candidate or for yourself, right? And it's not to really I always give the benefit of the doubt that recruiters are asking that question in a good faith effort, right? To really just understand, like, do they need to negotiate higher with the manager to secure your employment or secure your yes on the offer? But really, the recruiters are just really trying to assess like how how competitive they need to be, or how direct or how quickly sometimes they need to move for you as the candidate, right? Because you have other offers, you have other things lined up that you're working on. And again, there's as long as it's in good faith, there's nothing wrong with that question. I think it's really just being kind of really upfront, and asking, what your other options are, because they're really interested and they want to make sure they get to you first, or they want to have you accept. And that may be to go off of a higher amount, or move quickly in the process to secure acceptance. So that's typically what myself and the recruiters are usually trying to get at, when they're talking about other offers or other things that you have lined up potentially, that may go against or maybe competing with, right, their opportunity. If a student has an offer, but they are currently interviewing with another company for a job they want, can they still let the recruiter know to extend a deadline to accept an offer? Absolutely. I think it's definitely something that is a valid ask, right? To extend a deadline and accept an offer. I would probably caveat that answer to also say, like, prior to that point, like, if you've been open and honest with you're communicating with your recruiter, and the recruiter's been communicating with you, like, they should know up to that point, to Rosario's previous question, that potentially you're in the running for another opportunity or another couple opportunities, and that hey, we're extending an offer, but I want to see out some of these other opportunities, and is it possible to extend the deadline another 48, 72 hours if possible? Um, Really, another important theme to that question, to Julia's question, is also about timing, too, as well. Really, at the end of the day in recruitment, everyone to know timing is everything, right? Just not in jobs, but in general in life too. But in these situations, when you're negotiating or you're in the recruitment process, timing is always important. Sometimes it's in your favor, sometimes it's not. So that's something also to consider. But asking to extend a deadline if the timing works out, with the other offer or with the opportunity and the offer that you're considering, absolutely. I think it's a definitely a valid ask. Great. I think we're coming up on time here, Julia, but if there's any other questions, happy to answer some questions. Feel free to reach out to me directly, as I mentioned. And let me drop my LinkedIn in the chat one second. I promised I would. But feel free to connect with me via email, via LinkedIn, and ask any additional questions if they do pop up. Here's there's my LinkedIn. Feel free to connect. We can message there or discuss there. And as I mentioned, I always offer, my email as well. If sometimes a question comes up down the line, or you're getting into a negotiation and you need just someone to bounce some ideas off of or some advice, please feel free to reach out. Happy to help as well. And I do that going forward with all the students here at USC and through the workshops that I meet and interact with as well. So hopefully that's helpful to you. But please do utilize, either LinkedIn or email. Happy to be a resource for you going forward. So
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Cole, for such a insightful